Hey everybody, this is Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and we have a very special guest today for you. We have Jack Jampel, the Senior Manager of Global Mobility at Stryker Corporation. Many of you know Jack. He's fantastic, super guy. Super guy. I don't know. I'm sorry, Jack. You're just super guy. Okay, that's all you are. Super guy. But we got him on, and very excited about that. Also, want to remind everybody to read the book "Lead Like an Ally." That is our May book of the month that we're going to discuss with the author Julie Kratz. So please pick that up. You can buy it on Amazon. It's about allyship. And I want to go ahead and also, before we bring Jack on, go ahead and honor our sponsor for the day. Our sponsor is Pivot App. Did you know that 1/3 of assignees leave their post early? At Pivot, we want to change that. Pivot is the social mobility app designed to make a new city feel like home. How do we do that? We provide crowdsourced data from friends, coworkers, and other expats to give the best possible advice for assignees abroad. We can improve assignment success rates and help employees thrive, all for only $6. Contact Lynn Greenberg, founder of Pivot, at lynn@pivotapp.com. Mention you saw it here at Love and Relo, and it'll be a good thing. I think you get a free first month, actually. So thank you so much for Pivot App. And let's go ahead and bring Jack on.
Great.
Jack, how are you doing?
Hey, how are you doing, Ben? This is really a professional thing you got going on here. Makeup.
We are trying. We are trying. I'm sorry I couldn't get you in makeup before the show, but we are trying to really put a good product out there. I'm trying to just improve every show, honestly. Where in the world are you, Jack?
Well, I work out of my home outside of Philadelphia, but today I'm at my shore house down near Point Pleasant Beach, New Jersey. So just hanging here, enjoying the weather and enjoying the water. Not going out. I'm still staying in the house, but enjoying the better weather here.
Are people out there on the beach socially distanced, or is the beach totally closed at this point still?
I think they said they're going to open them by Memorial Day with social distancing. They just haven't come to the conclusion whether you can sunbathe or not, or you have to keep moving. That'll be the big question that has to be answered still. So
I never even thought about the dynamics of can you stop on the beach, or do you have to keep moving? That's funny. Well, you know what? At least you got is the weather's treating you good though out there?
Yeah, it's pretty nice. It's nice and sunny. It's getting warmer finally, so
yeah,
enjoying it.
Well, it's about 48 and drizzly here in Detroit, so you're doing better than most. We got a bunch of people here on LinkedIn. Let's go ahead and say hi to everybody before we get started. We got a whole lot of people on Facebook as well. Everybody, if you're out there right now, go ahead and hit that heart button out there. Let Jack know you love him. Okay, go ahead and smash that button. Take a moment. If you're on Facebook, do the same. Hit like. Also tag people if you want to see them. Go ahead and let me know in the comments that you're watching. Let me know where in the world you are. Give your company a little shout out. Give Jack a shout out. Let's go ahead and see who we got here. We got Simon Johns checking in from the UK. Brian Smith. Hey, Ben, tuning in from St. Louis. Hey, Brian. Maureen Longoria. It's Maureen in Chicago. Simon Johns. Go Lynn Greenberg. Great app. Yeah. Thank you for the sponsorship. Diane Rizzo. Hi, Ben and Jack. Diane in Delaware. Awesome. Meredith Morris tuning in from Houston. Jesse Silva watching in Florida. Susan Ginsburg in New York. Tamara Holt, Jack and Ben from Tamara in PA. Gary Connerly. Ben, a professional? And then he put more ha's than I can read. Thank you, Gary. That was very kind of you. Gary knows. He's been in that seat before, Jack. He knows what you're going through right now. Of course. Oh, my gosh. Lynn Greenberg checking in. Hey, Lynn. Alan King. Hey, Ben and Jack from Germany. All right. So we've got the UK. We got Germany. Who else we got here? Gary Connerly. Just kidding. Loving the shows. Thanks, Gary. Mena Elsafori. Mena from Dubai. So we've got our third continent represented. Sandra Clary tuning in from Alexandria, Virginia. Yvonne Thibodeau from Lakewood, California. Jason Rollins. Jack, love the look, he says.
The new beard, huh? The hair.
It's looking good. Looking good, Jack. How long you been growing that thing?
I guess about 4 weeks now, 4 or 5 weeks.
Looking solid.
It's coming in. I'll
Stately.
have to take a vote on it by the end of the show. We'll see.
Oh, are we going to shave it on the
Yeah.
show?
No, yeah, right. That's an idea.
We'll do a little fundraiser, maybe. Who knows? Ryan Witroba. Hey, Ben and Jack from New York. Hey, Ryan. Let's see. Hi from Idiko Burian. Hi, Ben and Jack from NEI Relo Europe.
Wow.
Checking. Yeah, Brian Loud. Liking the look. Also, Francine Dresty from St. Louis. I'm from Philly originally and went to the Jersey Shore growing up. There we go. Mary O'Donnell. Looking forward to hearing from you both today. Loving the look. Everybody's loving the look,
Oh,
Jack.
look, man. I was copying you. I was watching you every day, man. I just want to look like you, Ben.
Oh
Yeah.
man, oh man. You know what? In fact, we do have our first audience poll before we even jump in. Should Jack keep the beard?
I love it. I love it.
Okay, so throw it in the comments right now. Give us a
This is
yes or
it.
a no. Should
This is
Jack
it.
keep the beard? Now bring that thing back here. Let's bring that audience poll back. We got 51 people on LinkedIn, so we have a statistically valid sample, which is important for any kind of research, especially important stuff like this, important decisions. We got
Yeah.
25 people on Facebook. Jack, you're really drawing a crowd right now.
All
This
right.
is great. Gosh, so many people. I'll get back to the rest of these comments here lately, but gosh, we got a ton here. This is great. Jack, let's get into. I want to keep it light here. Well, first I'm going to tell you, Jack. I'm going to tell you what I really like about you, Jack. Okay. All right. This is what I like to do. I like to put
Great
people
to
on the
hear. Go
spot.
ahead.
I
Go
like to
ahead.
put people on the spot. Well, sometimes I know, and you kind of think that you're kind of disruptive, and you're always playing devil's advocate, or you're kind of like poking at things. But I think you actually have a really great heart, Jack, and you have this really high kind of profile and notoriety in the industry, and people look to you all the time. But I find that you always take time to connect with people and to care about people and to take an interest in people. And so many folks who have achieved maybe a certain status or a certain position, in an industry, or have been around long
Mhm.
enough, they don't really take time to meet new people. I experienced that early when I went to ERC, probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It was kind of clicky, and people kind of hung with their people. But you always took an effort to do that, and I respect you so much for that. And I appreciate that about you so much. And I'm hearing that you're doing a lot of Zoom calls lately. I mean,
Yeah.
what's that all about?
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. That's really, really great comments. And yeah, I just like to give back to the industry and to all the people that I network. I know it's hard once we're busy with work, and I just thought the time is right now. I have time, and there's all these people that always, I wanted to talk to, and they wanted to talk to me. So I just started sending out through LinkedIn and just putting my name out there. Anyone that want to have a video chat for 30 minutes, and we'll just talk about anything you want. It's just amazing. I mean, I probably have done over 30 in the last 3 days. Probably have about 40 more to go that I'll be scheduling. But they've just been great conversations with some great people that some I know and some I've never met before, but really I've learned a lot.
I
Yeah.
want to I want to hear more about this. I mean, if you're willing to share a little bit. I mean, what are some of the things you've learned?
You know, one of the things that, and I think there's a lot of value to it, and that's one thing that I like to share value. And I'm going to put a disclaimer out there. Some of my opinions may not be aligned with what other people are thinking, but I try to be honest of what works. And I've met a lot of people with startup companies, okay, in my Zoom calls. And they've all started as a result of a bad experience that they've had, okay? And they're great products, but it's like, how do you get to that next step that I want to talk to some of these people a little bit more? Because I sat there scratching my head and saying, why doesn't every RMC have this tool? Okay. Or why isn't every RMC using this? And I know that the change in the industry is very hard to do, but I think that those startups and those individual, niche type markets have to really put a marketing plan together because they're missing out. They have the idea, it happened to them, they fixed it, but people are not going to come running to it. So I think if you get the marketing plan, that's just one really big takeaway I had.
Well, I want to unpack that a little bit too, right? So you're saying like a marketing plan, is it because like they lack the relationships and the context in the industry? Like they developed it, maybe they were outside the industry and they had a problem maybe as a personal expat or whatever. They developed this
Yeah.
tool and then they say, "Hey, we have this now," but then nobody's really taking notice because they don't have the connections, or is it
Yeah.
because they don't have product market fit yet, or
Yeah.
what do you think it
Yeah.
is?
Our industry is so much about relationships. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But that's what it's built on. It's built on relationships. It's not built on so much household good movers and temp living, but it's really built on relationships. And I think what some of these companies need to do is get corporate backing, not to buy their product, but to believe in it, so that when I'm at a meeting, a regional meeting or whatever, and someone is looking for some kind of resolution to a problem, I can suggest it. We're salespeople too, even if we don't use your product. And I say that even with RMCs or whatever. Just because you're not my RMC doesn't mean that if someone asks me about it, that I won't be honest about it. So yeah, that's
Well,
what
I think you're really good about that too, Jack. Is I mean, you take an interest in people, and and sometimes at the end of it, you know, people are like, "So, what did No, no, not for me, but thank you for the information, and I'll keep it in mind, and I'll let you know if I think of somebody that could use it." Which leads me to the time, Jack. This is my favorite story, and I've told this a couple times before. If you watch the show or something, maybe you've seen it before, but I think it's just such a great story, and it also goes, it's a testament about what happens when you just kind of like raise your hand and get involved with like ERC or the associations and volunteer your time, and you're big about volunteering your time, Jack. And before I get into the story, I mean, why do you think it is that you volunteer your time so freely with Worldwide ERC?
um, you know, if you look into my background, all right, I was not just in mobility. I came from a pharmaceutical company. I was there for just about 20 years, and I had a lot of jobs in HR throughout the HR organization. I had jobs in finance. So I know the whole business, and I know the business rationale behind marketing and things of that nature. And I always wanted to give it back. Okay. When I started just with mobility, that's what I honed in on. And that's what I said, you know what? It's not that hard of a job. Okay. So how can I give it back? And it really isn't. If you have good partners, we can get into that.
Well, it's funny because suppliers, I think sometimes suppliers, we think that we're like, well, is this really a hard job? Everybody's doing everything for you. But then, of course, our mobility partners are like, no, it's crazy. You don't understand. And it's funny to hear you say, well, it's not that hard of a job, you know?
Well, a lot of it is, you have to, you want to keep your job. So you have to make sure that, you're self-fulfilling and showing your value. And that's okay. But I think it all comes back to some basics that we can talk about, later.
So Jack and I found ourselves in a room together back in Washington D.C. I was on I think this was my first go round doing the America's Mobility Conference, the spring conference planning committee, and I was really excited to be there. And this is probably like your third or fourth or fifth time doing it or something, right? How many times had it been for you? You think this was probably
Uh,
4 or 5 years
yeah,
ago?
it's probably over 5 times.
Yeah. So Jack was like the guy they always call because they know Jack's got an opinion. He'll do it. He'll make it good. He's reliable. Me, I was probably a total wild card. They had no idea what they were getting with me. So anyway, so we get into this room and nobody. I don't know if you guys have had experience doing this or not. If you're watching this, but they put you in this room. It's like a 2-day thing. At the end of the first day, you kind of get some camaraderie going, and you have dinner together, and then it's kind of like, okay, should we have a drink, whatever. So me and Jack, we're out with a couple of friends, and we're talking shop, and he was indulging me, talking shop. I'm the sales guy, and he's the corporate mobility manager, right? And I'm like so excited about this opportunity, and I'm like, all right, he's got a couple drinks in him, I got him where I want him, you know what I mean? And so anyway, we're having this really great conversation, right? And and you say to me, do you remember what you said to me?
Yeah, I asked you, what's your company about? What's different about your
Yeah,
company?
what makes you different? And I think it
What
was
makes you
loud in
different?
there too. So you kind of
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
kind of had some like Philly in you. You kind of had some Philly attitude.
Because
What makes you different?
I
You
could
know.
feel you were gonna do the cell thing, the old elevator speech. I knew it was coming. All right, go ahead.
So he's like, he got real Philly on me, and I'm from New York, so Philly versus New York, and it was almost fisticuffs. No, it wasn't really, but no,
No.
he's like, so what makes you different? And I'm like, well, we're a woman-owned business. We've been around 50 years, and we won the AMSA, Agent of the Year award. And I think he said something. Do you remember what you said to that?
Uh,
It was
no,
something
I
to the
mean,
effect of nobody cares.
right. I says everybody's gonna give me that answer. You were saying your quality scores were this and
Yeah.
you're less expensive than everybody. And I said, Ben, everybody's gonna say that to me. How is that different? And you're looking at me like, and I said, the whole differentiator, Ben, is you. Okay. You make the difference. And that's true for everybody on this line. Okay. You are the differentiator. When it comes to temp living, you're all selling the same places. You're in the same places. Okay. But the differentiator is the person. It's the person that I have a relationship with that I can go to make sure that not only is a good employee experience, but that we take care of things that do happen. And at first, you kind of got mad at me. I think you were taken back by it. But now look at you doing this show. Okay. I am so proud. I am so proud. You are a differentiator.
Thank you, Jack. No, I was flummoxed. I was flummoxed, right? Because he tells me that everybody says that. I'm like, well, everybody can't be a woman-owned business that won the AMSO award that has been around for. I mean, that's kind of like a specific set of criteria. But his point was everybody's got a shiny truck and thinks they're the best moving company, and they're all going to tell you the same thing. And it challenged me. Honestly, it challenged me to rethink my value proposition and the way that I describe myself and the way that I differentiate myself. And you're right, because we all go in there and we give basically the same sales pitch. And it's a wonder people can even make decisions, but they do it because they go to these conferences and they get to know people and they trust people. And you're right. It's like everybody's a good mover until they're not. And then what happens? And that's when it's about Ben or
Right.
Joe or Denise or whatever, you know. So I thought that was just great, and that was a real eye opener for me and kind of like a little bit of an inflection point maybe in my career, to be honest with you, where I started thinking differently about the importance of my personal brand, and to your credit, you also manage your personal brand. I think, I don't know if you do it intentionally or not, but I mean, do you intentionally think about your personal brand?
I think I do. I think, my brand is I really want to help the industry. I have made so many friends in this industry. It's incredible. It's a large industry, but when I sit down and just look at the amount of people that I know, it's incredible. And I just want to help. And I feel that, sharing in that is a real plus. And that's kind of what my brand is. As long as I'm in mobility, that's what I kind of want to do, is help.
And I think honestly, I think that's the best brand. I mean, that's why I did Love and Reload, because it's really about the people. It's about giving back. Frankly, I mean, this industry's been extremely good to me and my family. I mean, it's provided quite a bit, and I'm very blessed and fortunate. And so it's really about giving back. Um, so anyway, so we had we had that talk, and and that's kind of was the beginning of what I'll call our friendship. I hope I consider you a friend, right? And you've always been there to give me like kind of the straight opinion on things. And we've talked over the years about, and I also want to let everybody know, if you have questions, put them in there, and we're going to get to them, or we're going to try our best. There's a lot of people watching right now, but if you have questions, we got 63 on LinkedIn. Go ahead and hit that heart also, and let Jack know that you love him. All right, and if you hear something you like, hit the light bulb. If you're on Facebook, do the same. Leave your questions. We're going to get to them. But we've talked a lot, Jack, about the employee experience. I mean, we're in the managed relocation industry. We might sit in total rewards, we might sit in benefits, we sit in human resources, we sit in people organization, and we talk about the employee experience. And one of the things that you've talked about, which I love is about perfecting the employee experience. And I wanted you to kind of tell us a little bit about what
Yeah,
that means to
yeah.
you and what you've seen.
You know, the employee experience is a strategy. You know how we always talk about being strategic and, we want to see it at the table and, things of that nature. But to really do it right, it's a strategy. It just doesn't happen. You just don't say to your partners, I want an excellent employee experience. It takes work. It takes a plan to do that. And if you get that right, a lot of your other issues are going to go away, believe me. When one of the first things that you have to have, and RMCs maybe are not in love with this, but you have to have preferred partners. There is no way in the world that an RMC can select a household goods mover out of a 500 household good movers, and they're going to know my culture every time we have a move if they select a different household good mover. Now, just because I have a preferred doesn't mean that you don't get the referral fee or whatever. It could still go through them, but you select those two that match your model, that match your culture, that you can set up relationships, that their account manager, that if there's an issue, we take care of it then and there, not after it's over and it's been raised. Okay. So that's
And the funny thing about that, Jack, I'm just going to hop in because I think a
yeah,
lot of service providers are shaking their head saying, yes, 100%. The other thing about that is it actually makes the RMC's job a little easier
yeah,
because if we care more, frankly, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, if we have a relationship with you and we have that accountability to you, we're going to be micromanaging those moves. It's not just another
yeah.
file. It's Jack's
Absolutely.
VIP.
You know the culture. See, the RMCs are still working on a basis that think we're all about cost savings. That's what everything is based off of. You go into it, they put a bid, we're going to take the lowest bid. And many of you probably heard my story about, no one has ever patted me on the back for saving a company $500. But when there's a good move to an executive or a bad move to the executive, that's when I hear about it. But I don't get credit for saving the company 500. So yes, I know you're going to get comments that say, no, our corporate people say we want to save money. We want to save money. There's a way of handling that. There's a way of knowing culture and really dealing with that and delving into, believe me, if you get an employee experience right, they're not going to be looking at that cost as much. And it's not that much of a difference anyway that we're talking about.
I think you bring up so many good points, Jack. I just want to unpack like a couple of them. I mean, I hear all the time from business development people who go to market that it's all about the almighty dollar. And it's always how do I save money? And the RMCs tell me their corporate clients are always looking to save money. And my fellow movers and other service providers tell me everybody's so cost conscious. And that was pre-COVID, and now COVID hits, and oh my God, I'm so cost conscious. And I think it's so interesting that you say that it's not the most important thing. And I think what's also interesting is that sometimes as business development people, we have to understand when our clients don't actually know what's most important to them or don't actually
Perfect.
even. I
Yes.
mean, I hate to say it, and I
Perfect.
don't mean disrespect,
No,
but
you're right.
they're going to say it's cost, but no, it's that experience.
You're absolutely right. And the other thing I forgot to mention though is that when I'm talking about this, it may not be for every company. There may be companies out there where, you know what, they don't care about the people, and you cannot change that. Okay, you're never going to change that. We can talk about lump sums in a minute, but you can never change the culture of a company that says, I don't care if people leave. I used to work for a company like that, and it didn't matter. They get somebody else. That's what their thought. So it's not for every company, but I guarantee you, there's a lot, like you just said, Ben, that are not even sure that they hear, cost savings is number one. And if you think about it in your RMC world or your temp living world, your prices should all be around the same. Isn't that part of your vetting process, right? It's both quality and pricing. So you should all be around the same. So there shouldn't be any downside to preferred uh, suppliers.
Well, and you should probably weight the employee experience higher. So, like for instance, the the military, who buys the most moving of anybody in the world, they do 400,000 moves a year. They weight the employee experience, the surveys they get back at 70% and the cost at 30% to come up with a best value score and award moves that way to reward quality, which I think is a nice balance. It's basically
Yeah.
2-to-1 ratio, you know. But I have a question for you, Jack, and I want to open this up also to the viewers as well. You know, how do suppliers demonstrate the cost, maybe the soft cost or the long-term costs of a poor employee experience? How do we articulate that? How do we paint that picture for our global mobility professionals who then have to take that case back up to their purchasing team or to their CHRO or head of total rewards or whatever, wherever they sit? How do we really demonstrate something that's kind of nebulous like
Yeah.
employee
Two words
experience?
I have. Two words. You can't. You cannot do that. Okay. If a company is set in saving money, there's nothing that you can do with soft costs. When finance is looking at budgets and hard dollars, they're not going to look at soft costs and say, this is it. The other thing is, who are you talking to that you're trying to convince? If you're talking to a mobility manager, let me just say this saying that I heard one of our speakers. It said, "Don't accept no from someone who is unable to give you a yes."
Amen.
Okay, so are you even talking to the right people that have the ability to bring these soft costs to this, CFO of a company or stand in front of senior management to try to prove that employee experience is better because of this? There's been ROI studies done, and I've seen them. They would not pass a finance department. They're totally different than soft costs. So it's very hard for you to do that.
Yeah, the ROI stuff I did. I actually did a session on ROI of a mobility program at ERC, and it was a total disaster. I put this program together. I brought in an expert from California, and it was a disaster because I was like, I'm going to prove that, the ROI on mobility programs, and people told me it couldn't be done. And I was like, I don't care. I'm going to do it, because I'm an idiot. And I did it. I tried, and it was just the biggest dumpster fire of a session I'd ever been in. Unfortunately, I was like holding the microphone. So, yeah, I do warn you with that, but I like what you're saying, because and I would go even further. If you're talking to someone who doesn't get it, you should probably be talking to someone higher in the food chain, because the higher up you go, they understand that it's more of a strategic call. You're probably talking to a bean counter or someone who doesn't think creatively and strategically.
And let me also throw something in, because I could just see the minds going with questions saying, "Well, Jack, but you're different." And I've heard this a million times already. Okay, Jack, you're different. You handle it differently. But you have to get your corporate people involved. Okay, and what do I mean by that? When we have our regionals, they love being on panels. They love being on councils.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take that step to pull them in. Okay, a lot of them are quiet. A lot of them have never done it before. If you go to an ERC, there's not very many corporate people that go to these after-hour parties like I do. But that's just So I think it's work on your part as a supplier. And I'm going to give you an example of something. I'm on the advisory council of the Supplier Advisory Council of our RMC, a corporate person. Wow, is that crazy or what? Because what good does it do for all suppliers to get in a room and talk about corporate and how bad we are, and we don't know what we need. This is what you need. But it's like that. Get corporate involved with your companies, and believe me, there's a value in what they bring. It's the quid pro quo. Okay, it's kind of, you help me, we'll help you type situation.
Well, and it's having your customer involved in the service delivery creation and involved in the process of designing what the service and the product's going to look like. But I would also go a step further maybe and say, we're over here. We go to ERC, and everybody that's there is already drinking the Kool-Aid. We're already like, yeah, relocation, employee experience, it's all great. But who are the people that are not in that room that we need to be preaching this to, right? Because Jack, you get it. I mean, your title's mobility, right? You get it. But who are the other people in an organization that we need to be banging the drum in front of?
That's a hard question, because when you start going around the mobility person, I mean, that could blow up on you as well. But so I think it's you kind of have to manage that, and that's where the relationship comes in. If you have a good relationship with that mobility person, and you can get them to understand how important employee experience is and how you can help them, and there's not this fear that you're going around them. I think that's
Well, and let me rephrase that because I want to be clear here. I'm not saying, oh, mobility manager person doesn't get it. I'm going to go to her boss and make a case. No, I'm saying how do we equip her to go into her organization, and who does she need to be talking to? Is it the head of talent because they're up the pipeline, and they're the ones that are creating the requisitions, and they're the ones that are sourcing talent, and those are the
I,
people that kind of the tip of the spear.
I
Is
guess
it
Ben, I'm trying to
CHRO? Go
understand
ahead.
what answer are you trying. What
Well,
answer?
here's where I'm going with it. I don't think necessarily. We've all heard the seat at the table question. We've all heard that, hey, I don't have influence in my organization. I just get a requisition to move somebody and I move them. I'm not a strategic player. I'm a tactical, reactionary player. I want to go up the chain. I want to work interdepartmentally, cross-functionally with different areas of HR or talent or, finance or, whatever. And
Yeah.
when I hear that there's cost cutting measures in relocation, and I hear that there is a shift to lump sums, and I want to talk about lump sums next, but when I hear there's a shift to lump sums because basically it's all cost containment driven, that tells me that they don't get organizationally don't get mobility. And it tells me also, back to your point before, that you're probably talking to someone who can't say yes. So who are the people in the organization that can say yes that aren't getting it? And what steps can we take as an industry to educate those people? Who are, what titles are
So,
they, and how do we reach them?
again, it's those two words. It's you can't. If an organization's culture, I'm sorry, but if an organization's culture is cost savings, if you think about it, mobility is a small piece of a large organization. Think about it, okay? I mean, we have
Yeah.
a pretty big program, but overall, if you look at what mobility is, it's a little part of it. Okay, so there's not a lot of concentration being honed in on that. When we talk about talent management being at the table, we have a good number of moves, but compared to the number of employees we have, we're small. So
Right.
do you think that talent management is going to put a program together just for mobility? Not usually, and there could be companies that do it. But at the end of the day, and it just bothers me when we keep going back to the strategic, we're not being strategic. We are strategic. We are the first people that employee sees and works with before they even get into that company. We're molding how that person feels about our company.
You're the first impression a lot of
The
times, right?
first impression, we're before anybody, we're before their boss. Okay, so what we do absolutely is strategic, and that's why employee experience is a strategy. It's not just telling your suppliers. Okay, it's making sure that the people that talk to my employees, the counselors, they know me. I take them out to dinner twice a year. I make an annual trip. They know me without the bosses at the thing. They know me. And I know, and you're saying this is different. This is you, Jack. But an RMC can do that. They can offer to send their counselors out with them to learn who this person is. So they're not afraid to come to me with issues. They're not afraid to come to me with ideas.
What types of ideas and conversations have come out of those relationships?
Yeah, you know what? They'll come to me where, just an example, we move the car, but they want to go see their mother and father who lives in another state, okay, and then ship the car from there, okay? So they'll come to me and say, Jack, it's even a closer move for you, but it's not coming from their primary home. And that's what policy states, primary home, okay? So they're comfortable enough not to be afraid to come to me and say, Jack, they'd like to do this. They want to go visit their family. Can we ship the car from there? And that makes a big difference to that employee, and we take care of it fast.
Yeah.
It's not like he calls and then 4 days later. They're not afraid to come to me.
Right. It's like, we got to get approval and let me see.
Right.
And we're still checking and blah, blah, blah. And it's like,
Right.
yeah.
It's they'll text me or email me, and within a couple of minutes they have a response.
We got some great questions coming on. We got 64 people here on LinkedIn. We got 32 on Facebook right now. People are hanging in there. They've been very patient. I've lost a ton of comments over here in the LinkedIn, so if I don't read your comment, I apologize. But we got questions here, and I want to take a couple questions. Okay, Jack?
Yeah.
Miriam from Ghana. So we've got Africa, we've got the Middle East, we've got Europe, we've got America. This is great. Hi, Jack. Tuning in from Ghana. Question: how are you assessing if the employee experience is excellent or below par? Is there a standard process you follow? Does it go beyond a survey?
Perfect. That's a perfect question, and something I did want to get into. The first thing you have to do, you have to have an outside survey. Okay, it cannot be done by your RMC. It cannot be done by, it has to be done by an outside company that we use. And
why is that, Jack? Tell them why.
Well, because, what's the saying with the chicken coop and the fox type of thing? You
can't let the fox in the hen house, right?
Right, whatever it is, the chicken coop, the hen house. But, and the other thing is the survey has to be simple. There's one question that I hone in on. I'm just going to talk about the household goods survey one. Okay. I hone in on one question and then the overall score. And that question is, would you use this company again? If you had to relocate again, would you use this company again? Because things are going to happen. There's no doubt. Things may get broken. But I guarantee you, if they had a good experience with them and the claims go well and everything else, they're still going to say, I would use them again, okay, in those situations. I can tell you, I just looked at our stats for first quarter. We had 58 surveys returned, 40 returned excellent, not good. I'm saying 40. That's 70% came back as excellent, not good, okay? Yeah. I don't even know what the other ones for, but 40 out of 58 became excellent because my suppliers know my culture. They know how to get things done. If there's an issue, we'll take care of the issue and then figure out who's going to pay for it later. That's what, because sometimes it is our fault. And I know that, again, people are saying, well, that's you, Jack. But I think everybody's fair in a way to do things like that.
I love the fact that you take care of things quick. I think that's so important. And I think so often, it's so funny because we end up giving them what they want most of the time anyway. So why are we running them through the ringer for 30 days or whatever, 30 days is a good scenario a lot of times. So why are we running them through the ringer, right? Making them jump through hoops, making them feel like an idiot. This is exactly what they wanted to avoid. Let's see here. Jill says, so hard to paint the intangible failed EE to the powers that be. Well, that's a good point. You got failed, things like failed assignments, right? And people that don't succeed in their role. Have you had any success using that as a kind of a justification to invest more in the relocation experience?
Well, again, it's not really investing more in a relocation experience. It's developing what you want out of it. It's not costing me more to manage a good strategy. That's what I'm kind of trying to get through here. There's no more cost to it. It's just how you do it. It's building relationships. It's making sure you have the trust of your suppliers, have preferred suppliers, have surveys that are quick, take care of issues right away. It's building a strategy.
So it's more of a process than really an investment. And you're saying that now because you have a fully managed relocation program. There's people that might be watching this that have managed caps, that have lump sums, that have, all sorts
If
of
you have
budget
if
restrictions.
you have a managed cap, then you don't care about employee experience. Okay, if you
Write
have
that down.
no, I mean think about it. If you have to give an invoice to an employee, what kind of employee experience is that person having?
Shitty.
Right? I mean, it's a general statement, but in reality, and that gets back to what I was saying, not every company sees the value in it, and you can't change that. You can't change that. Okay.
Got a question here from Mark Moose in Switzerland. How do we defend ourselves against bad customer experience that is not justified? So he's a moving company slash relocation provider out of Switzerland, France, and I think he says, how do we defend ourselves against bad customer experience that is not justified? I'm assuming he means from like a review standpoint.
Yeah, I can only tell you that the situations that I look at, if I find that to be the case, I'll throw out a survey. I won't, because our pricing is based off of survey data. So if I feel that employees being unjust or there's situations going on, because my household good movers can always come to me and talk to me about it. And if I feel it was to, it's not their fault, then I won't count that survey.
Do you
Because
know how nice that is, being able to pick up the phone and say, Jack, here's the deal. We broke this, but she's trying to get me for the floors. Like we
exactly,
shipped her table, but she wants brand new hardwood floors. Like,
yeah.
come on, man.
But that you can only do that if you have preferred suppliers. You can't do it if you're just picking from 500 household good movers.
If we don't have that phone call, if I don't have that direct access to you, then an RMC might say to me, "Listen, Ben, I don't care. She's a VIP. She's a EVP in the HR organization, and we need this to go away." Now, of course, in that scenario, Jack's like, "Hey, it's my boss. I need this to go away." But other than that, but it's nice to be able to pick that phone call up. Pick that phone
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Sandra Clary, for companies that have procurement leading the RFP conversations and decisions. Oh, this is a great topic, Jack.
I love it.
Jack. I could hug you right now. All right, for
You know
companies that
where
have
I'm going.
for companies that have procurement leading the RFP conversations and decisions, it is sometimes a challenge to transcend the quote price is the only criteria end quote, even when we know our comparative value and our positive impact for the business, and when we're confident that the business would agree on the value.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Procurement. All right, and it's not for all companies, but I can pretty much guarantee that the majority of decisions that are made in mobility are not procurement's decision. Okay, they are there to save money. Okay, that's what they're there for. They're not really analyzing the day-to-day operations that the mobility person has to go through. So what I'm trying to say is that if your mobility person is good at what they do, they still can drive it the way that they want it to go. At the end of the day, you can still show cost savings. Okay. There's a cartoon that I always like to, I think it was Dilbert, where the guy is sitting with his supplier, and he says to the supplier, "You have to cut my prices by 10%." And the supplier says, "Well, I've already cut your prices by 10%. He says, "Well, how do I know you've done that?" And he says, "Because I'm telling you, and that's exactly what I'm going to tell your procurement person. You have built such a complex structure of pricing in this industry that I'm not sure anybody can understand it." Okay, so I think what has to happen is you have to believe in your mobility person having the relationships and going with the partner that they feel is the right partner. I mean, at the end of the day, you're never comparing apples to apples in household goods, in RMCs. Everyone's got different models and everyone's got a different way. So I truly believe a corporate still has the ability to, still steer in the way that they want it to go. and still show cost savings, even using that supplier.
That's when the company believes in that person and has confidence in them, and that person has a fair amount of autonomy and influence in the organization to make those decisions. And I think that a key opportunity as an industry for us is to help the professionals that find themselves managing global mobility to give them the skills necessary to wield that
Yeah.
influence, because I feel like a lot of them just don't have it. Maybe they were an HR generalist and this just fell in their lap, or they were doing something else and somebody said, "Hey, you want mobility?" and they're like, "Oh, all right," and they just
Yeah.
have it now. And so like
Yeah.
we got to help these people understand
Well,
how
I,
to.
I think in the small programs, you're absolutely right. But I'm talking about your larger companies. It's still driven by the mobility managers. Procurement's involved in it. But most of your larger companies, we have to work with them day in, day out. And definitely, we do have a say in the decision making.
We got some great comments here. Gary Connerly says, "Don't let the fox count the chickens. That's how you end up short a few chickens." Lindy Chapman saying, "But did the surveys come from the relocated spouse?" She's always the spouse advocate. Do you ever survey the spouse?
Let me tell you something. Yes, you don't have to survey the spouse. Okay, the spouse, if they're involved in that move, they're part of that survey process. Believe me, we hear that as well.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be sent directly to the spouse for it to work. I guarantee if there was a bad experience, the spouse is going to be involved in any kind of surveys.
Lindy might beg to differ here, but this that would be an interesting debate there. Lynn Greenberg says, "What type of KPIs should the industry look at in regards to employee experience?"
That's a tough one. As far as mine go, I look for between 90 and 100% for probably 95% of our moves. So it just depends on how you measure your surveys.
Well, and you talk about the would you recommend or would you use this company again, which is the typical. Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I mean that's kind of like you said is your number one, really, right?
Right.
Katie Linehan says supplier partner relationships are so critical to service successes. Miriam says, "Thanks for taking my question. Great answer. I couldn't agree on the crux of the issue. I agree that's the crux of the issue. Hope you're getting feedback from the expat spouse too. A lot of spouse people banging the
Oh
spouse
yeah.
drum out there, huh?
Yeah. They let you know. I've yet to have shy spouse that didn't let us know as well.
Amanda says on Facebook, also boggles my mind when procurement has rules that force an RFP. We all know how much work an RFP is for both the corporate mobility professionals and the RMCs. Would be a big shift is thoughts on changing that. That's a
Can I give a little trick? And probably Amanda, you've probably heard me talk about this. Let me give you a trick to
talk.
give to other global mobility managers. The reason why mobility kicks out when RFPs are done and when procurement is looking is because it's millions and millions of dollars, because all of your costs pass through your RMC. Okay. If you break down the cost and you try to show procurement that the RMC is a small part of that, whatever millions it is, most of it is lump sums and household goods, and that all are pass throughs. So I'm telling the RMCs to educate those individuals that are running into this problem to show, after it's all said and done, you're such a small percentage of the cost of the
Right.
location that an RFP may not even be needed.
Well, and that is, we had some folks talk about the zero fee model and some of the drawbacks of the zero fee model, and some of the drawbacks of the zero fee model is that they're taking a percentage of services, a commission, but it looks like they're billing all this revenue, to your point, or billing all these billables, right? But if you had a fee model where it's like, okay, I'm going to charge you X to manage this file, I'm making $500 or $1,000 in this file. I do 300 of them. I'm making $300,000. Is that even worth competing to your point.
Exactly. And my prediction in this industry is that eventually you're going to go back to the per file fee. It's just not sustainable. I mean, there's only so much that'll be able to get squeezed. And I think, but you hear that corporations don't want to do that. And I don't believe that. I think if you can show a corporate that you're going to reduce costs by your household goods by this amount, okay, which they've upped the price, and put it into the file fee, you just have to show it on where you're saving money and where you're paying for it. So instead of the temp living adding whatever $5 or $10 a month, it goes towards a per file fee. So it's really going to be an education. It was all built off of home sale, which now is not enough. There's so many more renters out there that's not enough anymore. So it's like, how much more can this model take before it's not sustainable?
It's good, good point there. We got another question here from Nicole Barilli. Any thoughts on bringing some currently outsourced global mobility support in-house?
Yeah, you're always going to have a hard time with that, because when finance is looking at it, okay, it's additional headcount, it's actual budget dollars that you have to add to departments. It's always harder to add headcount in this type of economy, and that's the way that they're looking at it. If you need 10 people, it's just gonna be really hard to justify that once you have an outsourced model. Because of the billing of it, and it's hard to dissect the outsourced model to show how you would save the company money, because household goods, you're still going to have to pay for it. Okay. You're still going to have to pay for temp living. So it's just a finance thing. I think it's very hard to bring back in-house because of the cost.
Well, and to your point though, before about if you had a fee model, you say, okay, I'm paying my RMC 300 grand. Well, I could do the math pretty quick. If I think I need 10 people, maybe it doesn't make sense. If I think I can do it with 5, maybe it does make sense. I mean, it's almost harder to, it would be easier to quantify that way as well. Jamie Master says, what nuggets can Jack share to sales teams trying to sell virtually in this era?
Sell, what do you mean sell virtually?
I guess the fact that you can't see people, you can't hop on a plane and come see Jack, or you can't see somebody at the, the ERC conference or whatever. Right now, we're all stuck in our house.
Yeah, I think right now there's just so much uncertainty out there. No one, unless you're a company that really did well in this, you're going to have a hard time really trying to sell at this point or trying to put in new ideas. So many companies have come to a standstill and don't even know what opening up is going to look like. The only thing I can suggest is that you keep your relationships open. Keep, when you have a chance to speak to someone, speak to them. But just keep the relationships. I think selling is going to be really tough for a little bit, for most companies. There's some companies that nothing has changed.
What I find though, and here's a bright side thing, is that we're getting more personal, distant. So what I mean by that is, it used to be if I wanted to really get to know Jack, the only way would be at ERC at a party or something, But now Jack's doing Zoom calls with people. Here I am doing, Love and Relos and talking about, my kids and my hopes and my dreams. And I mean, we're doing this thing where, like, we didn't used to do this. Like, we didn't used to get personal on a video chat. At least I don't think we did, And so I think the what's allowable is different now. I think people are getting a lot more vulnerable and authentic. So, you might have some success with that, Jamie, as well. We got a good question here from Michael Smith here at AHI Corporate Housing. If you are an HR person and you move into mobility, what is the most important thing you need to know before you make the move? If you're an HR generalist, maybe, or a different discipline.
The most important thing you need to know is that you'll probably stay in mobility for quite some time. If you become an expert in mobility, it hasn't been one of these
You can't get out.
developmental areas. It hasn't been like, oh, we're going to develop you. We're going to put you in mobility. It's usually they need somebody, so somebody left, and they'll put them in there. I haven't known too many people there have been people that have developed out of mobility, but it's such a unique skill that sometimes you're in it for a long time.
Yeah, people say they come in, they don't leave, right? And some people are happy about that, and some people are like, "This is a career cul-de-sac. I want to be the CHRO, and I'm over here in mobility." And you know, Lindy Chapman actually brings up a good point. My husband and she was talking about the spouse voice. My husband and I have gone round and round about the surveys. His intent is to stay under the radar and refuses to give honest feedback. And I'm going to fill in the blank. Meanwhile, she's over here dealing with the actual move and wants to let people know. I just put those words in your mouth, Lindy, but I think that's where you're going. Just a comment, we'll say. William Keating says RMC spend is usually less than 3% of the total spend. I don't know if that's true or not, but
Yeah, it's pretty close. That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was a good point. Yeah.
There's other gosh, there's a ton of great comments here. I don't know if we're gonna get to all of them. Gosh, there's so many good stuff here. Let's see here. Okay, I want to talk about something. Okay, we've got 70 people on LinkedIn. This is great. We got 25 people on Facebook. Phenomenal. But there's things that people don't know about Jack. Jack, you're a really open guy, and there's people that don't know some of like your hobbies. Like I didn't know that. I think I have a pretty good relationship with you, but I didn't know you design cakes. Is this a thing? Jack designs cakes. We're putting it up on there. So if you're not watching, watch it right now. Are you actually? Let me ask you this, Jack. Did you actually design this cake, or did you just pick up a bag of piping, like piping some?
Well, yeah. Let me give you the history.
Please.
I wasn't always in mobility, believe it or not. When I grew up in the family business, in the bakery business, our family had a bakery, and I worked in there probably when I was in high school and through high school, and after I graduated, and took over the business for a good number of years. And so what you see there, I used to do cake decorating among other things. So that was 30 years ago. I made my wedding cake, my wife and I, which is a bridge fountain cake, and that's the one on the right. My daughter got married 3 years ago, and I just wanted to see if I can replicate it. But first, I had to convince her: can I make this old-fashioned cake? The fountain cakes, they're no longer out there anymore. So I asked her, and she was delighted. So what I had to do is find a bakery that would now allow me to, come in, bake it, decorate it, and, get all the parts for it. So I called around, and there's a local bakery. Now, I haven't done this in 30 years, so I was hoping it was going to be like riding a bicycle. And at the end of the day, it was. It was just such a great feeling to be able to do this for my daughter, to replicate the cake that I had 30 years ago.
Incredible.
And as well, on the table is my wife's wedding gown is draped on the table under that wedding cake.
Oh my gosh.
And the figurine that's in the middle there is from our wedding cake. So we have the same figurine. So that's something a lot of people don't know about me, but I used to be a baker, and then I said, I want to get into global mobility, and that's how I got into it.
Oh my gosh. So you used so many questions. So you made that cake originally for your own wedding.
Correct.
And then your daughter gets married, and you're like, hey, I know you think you know what you want, but let me ask you if I can actually make the same cake I made for your mom and I.
Yeah, because they're so out of style. You don't see fountain cakes anymore. They're very plain now, very easy, actually. So she was a trooper, and she said she would love for me to do that. And she did a whole story. She put it in an 8x10 frame that told the whole story. And I'll tell you, that just was the best feeling in the world, to be able to do that for my daughter.
That's so cool. That's so special. That's really, really, really sweet. How long did it take to make?
Well, between baking and everything, I mean, to actually decorate it, probably 5 to 6 hours of decorating it. And then when I got to the place, that's why you saw me piping, because you have to kind of fix things and things like in my tuxedo. I was down there, you know.
That's dangerous. That's you're piping in a tuxedo. I mean,
Right.
oh my gosh, that's so great, Jack. This has been such a pleasure. We're at our time here, but I wanted everybody out there that's watching this. First of all, hit that applause icon. Okay, hit the green little hands. Okay, let Jack know what a great job you did because this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much, Jack. I want to just give you an opportunity, kind of in closing, just to leave us with a few thoughts. I mean, what do you want to leave with?
Like I said, I'm giving, the perfect scenarios out there, and I know not every corporate is the same, but I think if everybody just tries to work on it, believe me, even the ones that say it's cost savings, a lot of your problems go away if you get the employee experience right. And, I can guarantee that. It's just, build those relationships with your corporate people, get them involved in things with your company, make them feel wanted, make them feel as part of that process. And I want to leave you with that. And feel free, anyone wants to email me or video chat, send me a message. I'm still taking them.
Well, there goes the next 2 weeks of your life, Jack.
Yeah. Thank you very much. This is great.
Thank you, Jack. This has been a real blessing and an honor to have this opportunity to be with you today. Thank you for sharing your story and your perspectives. They're much needed. They're unique, and they're extremely valuable. So thank you so much. Folks are hitting those applause buttons left and right over here. Everybody, this has been our Love and Relo for Thursday. Tomorrow, we have a special edition of Love and Relo where we actually have Nicole Barilli from NB Intercultural is actually co-hosting with me a Mobility Jeopardy on Friday. It's part of our Fridays in May series where we're actually doing episode 2 of Mobility Jeopardy. And the winner of this week will face Brian Keating, and the winner of next week in the Mobility Jeopardy Championship, which I believe is May 29th, Friday, May 29th, last Friday of May. Bring a cocktail, bring your leather-bound books and all your mobility intelligence, and maybe some that's not mobility related, and have a great time. Jack, thanks again. Thanks everybody for popping in. All the phenomenal questions. We had a great audience today. It means the world to me that you guys would spend your afternoon with us. So thanks everybody. Take care.
Thanks. Thank you. Have a great day.